Hello, welcome to this section. We are going to talk about data analysis. So some of you may ask, and what is the statistics analysis? I remember we mentioned about it before. And there are two categories in the statistic analysis. The first one is descriptive statistics, and the second one is the inferential statistics. And then someone may ask another question. How to choose the kinds of statistical analysis is kind of complicated. Yes, it's really complicated, and sometimes it's really painful. But try to remember some principles to choose the statistical analysis. And you can also ask a technician, which is expert in the statistic, and these experts will give you some suggestions. So when you choose the kinds of statistical analysis, considering two aspects. The first one, you need to consider the characteristics of the study design. We mentioned some study designs before. So if you study experimental design or quasi-experimental design or non-experimental design, because different design, they have their different research purpose. So based on this purpose, you will choose different, statistical analysis. And also we talk about characteristics of the data. In the quantitative research, we usually divide the data into 4 types: nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. So what's the nominal data? Nominal scale corresponds to categories that are different from each other but cannot be ordered with respect to each other. There's no order. So for example, gender, there's no order, only male and female. And blood type, marriage status, you can see the difference, but there is no order. And sometimes the answer of the question is yes, no, or don't know. So this kind of things can be considered as nominal data. And the ordinal data means the points on an ordinal scale can be put in order with respect to each other, but the intervals between each of the points are not necessarily equal to each other. So, such as a rating scale with the points strongly disagree, nature agree, strongly agree, this kind of Likert scale. So just remember, Likert scale, the data should be ordinal data. And for the interval data, so interval means the intervals between each of the points are all equal to each other, but the scale doesn't have a fixed 0 point that corresponds to the absence of what is measured. For example, such the temperature we measured, for the weather, and 0 doesn't signify an absence of heat, right? And the last one is ratio data, ratio scale. So ratio scale has both equality of intervals and a fixed 0 point that corresponds to the absence of what is measured. For example, we have measured the weight. So when you got the 0 weight, means no weight, right? So I will give you an example about the different measurement levels, because in one research, in one study, you may have all these kind of measurement levels. So this example is from Dr. Cumming and Ramsey's the study, and they published in 2015 and on the Journal of Clinical Nursing. And in their study, the topic is long-term effects of a nurse-led group and the individual patient education program for patients with chronic inflammatory polyarthritis. So in this article, they tested the effect of a nurse-led education program, right? So the gender in their study, gender, male, female, and the diagnosis, this kind of diagnosis, they were measured as nominal level variables. And education, see, 10 years, from 11 to 12 years and more than 13 years was operationalized as an ordinal measurement. And many outcomes such as self-efficacy, coping, pain, hospital anxiety, and depression were measured as an interval level scale. And then several variables such as the number of the hospital admissions, they can be a ratio level. So 0 means no time to come to the hospital. The hospital admission never happened, right? So 0 means exactly 0. And age. So these 4 types measurement for the data, from the left is the highest level for the measurement, and nominal is the lowest level for the measurement. So there are some tips in our statistic principles. Dr. Pollitt and Baker in 2017, in their books, this is really traditional book, is another textbook in our course, Nursing Research, Generating and Assessing Evidence for Nursing Practice. In this book, they talk about, in operationalized variables, it is best to use the highest measurement level possible because they are more powerful and precise. So try to use the highest measurement level. But sometimes group membership is more informative than continuous scores, especially for clinicians who need cut point for making decisions. For example, for some purpose, it may be more relevant to designate infants as being of low weight versus normal birth weight. So now you change to the nominal level, then to use actual birth weight value. Actually, birth weight value is the ratio level, is the highest. But in this situation, the nominal level is much better to compare if the infant is the low weight or the normal birth weight. But in this situation, try to remember you best measure the highest level. That means you get the data on the highest level, then you convert to a lower level if appropriate. So just try to remember when you do the data collection, try to collect data at the highest level, such as ratio level or interval level, and then you can change this data to the lowest level if it is needed. And so in this book, in 2013, another textbook for this course is Dr. Groove, Burns, and Dr. Gray. They talk about, they draw a picture, a figure. This is really good figure, so I borrowed from their textbook. This figure just explains, how you choose the different statistics. For example, when you are going to test the difference, so you have the nominal or ordinal scale, the data on this level. If you do for the nominal data, you have one group difference, two groups different, and more than two groups different, and you also have independent samples, pair samples. So they give some ideas about which kind of special statistic you can use. So you can follow this table, follow these figures. It's really, really easy for the new researcher. And for the ordinal level data, they also divided the two groups difference or more than two groups difference. So you can try to figure out in your situation which statistic method you can use. And also for the difference, you have the interval ratio data. So this is the list for you choose. And this is for the difference. How about for the associations or relationships? The purpose of your research is try to figure out, are there any relationships between different samples or different variables? So you have the data at different level. If you want to do the associations, So they have the different recommendation for you to choose. So this figure is really, really good. So I recommend you to read this textbook carefully about this chapter. So summary, how to choose the kinds of statistical analysis? You just need to consider in two aspects. First, to considering the study design, and that means to consider the purpose of your study. And then to think about what's the characteristic of the data. Is the nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio data? So based on the figure I mentioned before, you can choose one. So thank you for today and see you next time.